Hello, my name is Larry Good. I'm an NRA certified firearms safety instructor, federally licensed firearms dealer, and the owner here at Southwest Washington Surplus in Vancouver, Washington. I'd like to talk to you about Initiative 594, a gun control effort being backed by billionaires trying to buy political results while they are insulated from the effects of it by their own money, influence, and armed private security. I-594 proponents claim that the initiative will close some kind of a legal loophole, and that it's a common sense idea that all reasonable people will agree with. Nothing could be further from the truth. 594 requires background checks for every transfer of a firearm from one person's possession to another person, even temporarily or without a transfer of money or ownership involved. If you loan a firearm for any period of time, it's a transfer under this law. I-594 proponents have been using a bait and switch technique to distract attention by comparing it to the federal firearms law that already limits the definition of a transfer to a transaction that changes ownership with possession of the firearm. But the 18-page I-594 document itself explicitly makes it illegal to loan a firearm. Permanent gifts between very limited close family relationships have an exception, but temporary loans to adult children do not. In a little-known rule, persons under the age of 21 may own a handgun but may not purchase it from a federally licensed dealer. So I cannot run a background check for a handgun for a person under 21 years of age. I-594 would prevent you from ever loaning or giving your adult child a handgun for self-protection until they're over 21, no matter what their training or maturity level, even with a specific threat against them. As a firearms instructor, I would be prohibited in most cases from renting or loaning a firearm to a student for educational and training purposes without an impossible compliance burden for background checks on regular citizens. This would essentially put an end to formal firearm safety instruction in this state. What I-594 actually does is penalize law-abiding people who try to do things the right way. It adds a costly burden in terms of time, paperwork, and money to exercise a fundamental civil right to self-defense. It criminalizes ordinary behavior and creates a state registry of firearms that can easily lead to later confiscation, as we're currently seeing in New York, California, and Connecticut. 7,500 law enforcement officers across Washington state, represented by Washington Council of Police and Sheriffs, WACOPS.org, and the Washington State Law Enforcement Firearms Instructor Association, all oppose this 18-page initiative that would require background checks for most sales, transfers, and loans of firearms. WACOPS says they do not believe this measure will keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill or criminals. They believe this requirement will overwhelm the system. It will cause law-abiding citizens to inadvertently become criminals. And this measure will create a de facto registration scheme that is an unsupportable intrusion into the privacy and civil rights of the people. I-594 is ethically unsupportable. I urge you to vote no on I-594 in November.